You wake up and you're already tired. Not the kind of tired that a cup of coffee fixes, the kind that sits behind your eyes, in your joints, in your chest. You drag yourself through the morning, hit a wall at 2 in the afternoon, that crash that makes you wonder if something is genuinely wrong with you. And then the cravings kick in. Sugar, bread, anything to make the fog lift even for a moment. You've told yourself it's stress. You've told yourself it's age. You've told yourself everybody feels like this. But here's what nobody is saying to you directly. What you're feeling isn't a character flaw, and it is not inevitable. Those crashes, those cravings, that fog rolling into your brain every single afternoon, they are biological signals. Your body is waving a red flag, and that flag has a very specific name: glucose dysregulation. And today, right now, I'm going to show you exactly how to fix it. Not in 6 months, not with some complicated overhaul you'll abandon by Thursday. In 7 days, with one science-backed protocol that addresses the root cause instead of chasing the symptoms. Stay with me through today's episode, because what I'm about to share could genuinely change the way your body feels from the inside out. And stay for day 5, because that one surprises almost everyone, including people who already think they know everything about blood sugar. Here at Vitawave, we say something most health channels are afraid to say out loud. Health is not a destination, it's a rhythm you learn to ride. We don't chase perfect lab numbers or crash diet transformations. We decode your biological waves, the real signals your body is sending beneath the surface, so we can turn back the clock from the inside out. And if you are the kind of person who's done with Band-Aid solutions, if you're someone who wants to understand the why behind what's happening in your body, not just follow another list of rules you'll forget in a week, then you are exactly where you need to be right now. I'm Dr. Elias Site, and today's rhythm we're learning to ride is the one that controls your energy, your hunger, your mental clarity, your mood, and your long-term metabolic fate. It's your glucose wave. This is the Insulin Reset, a 7-day protocol to flatten those waves and keep them flat. Let's decode this together. Let me paint a picture of what is actually happening inside your body right now while you're here watching this. Every time you eat, especially anything processed, starchy or sweet, your blood sugar spikes. Your pancreas rushes out insulin like a fire brigade trying to contain a blaze. Insulin opens the doors of your cells, glucose floods in, and for a moment you feel great, energized, clear-headed. But then the brigade overshoots. Blood sugar crashes, and suddenly your brain, which runs almost entirely on glucose, starts panicking. It sends a signal that screams, "Get more sugar, now." And you do, because your biology's in the driver's seat, not your willpower. This cycle, spike, crash, crave, repeat. Millions of people ride it every single day without ever knowing it has a name. Now here's where it gets serious, and I really want you to stay with this part. These repeated spikes don't just drain your energy, they inflame your arteries, they accelerate aging at the cellular level, they disrupt your hormones, especially cortisol and leptin, the ones that control stress and hunger. They impair your ability to focus, sleep deeply, and recover from any kind of physical or emotional demand. The medical literature is unambiguous on this. Chronic glucose dysregulation is not just a precursor to type 2 diabetes. It is directly linked to cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, accelerated skin aging, chronic fatigue, and deep hormonal imbalance. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this because the moment I truly understood this, when it went from abstract science to this is what's happening inside me right now, everything changed. For me, for my patients, and for the thousands of people in our Vitawave community who sent me messages I still read on hard days. Because here is what they never tell you. Your cells are not broken. Your system is just out of calibration, and calibration, that is something we can absolutely fix. Let's talk about insulin for a moment, because this hormone is the most misunderstood character in your entire metabolic story. Insulin is not the villain. Insulin is the messenger. Its job is to take the glucose in your bloodstream and deliver it where it belongs, to your muscles, your organs, your brain. Under normal conditions, this system is elegant, efficient, genuinely brilliant.
The problem emerges when the system is called on too often, too intensely, for too long. When you spike your blood sugar repeatedly, especially with ultra-processed foods, refined carbohydrates, sugary drinks, or even what many people consider healthy options, like fruit juice or low-fat yogurt, your cells begin to ignore insulin signal. They stop answering the door. This is called insulin resistance, and it doesn't announce itself. It creeps in quietly over months, sometimes years, until one day you realize that no matter how clean you eat or how much you sleep, you still feel like you're running on empty. Your pancreas, sensing the message isn't getting through, responds by producing even more insulin. More glucose gets stored as fat, particularly visceral fat, the dangerous kind that wraps around your organs, where you can't see it or feel it. More inflammation accumulates, more oxidative stress compounds. And every symptom you've been trying to explain away, the fatigue, the brain fog, the belly that won't shift no matter what you try, the mood swings that arrive without warning, those are not separate problems. They are all one problem, with one name. Your glucose waves are out of rhythm. Here is the research that changed everything for me. Studies examining targeted short-window interventions found something remarkable. The body can begin to recalibrate insulin sensitivity in as little as 7 days, when the right inputs are applied in the right sequence. 7 days, not 7 months. That is the foundation of what I'm about to walk you through. And I want you to begin right now, today, with whatever meal comes next. Before we go day by day, I want to give you one mental frame that makes everything else click. Think of your blood sugar like ocean waves. Right now, for most of you, those waves are chaotic, crashing tall, pulling back fast, slamming in again before you can catch your breath. What we're going to do over these 7 days is teach those waves to move in long, slow, steady swells, powerful, predictable, sustainable. That is what a metabolically healthy body feels like. Not flat, waves never disappear, but rhythmic, working with you instead of against you. Here is how we build that rhythm. Day 1, break the spike cycle. Day 1 is about observation, not restriction, not suffering. Observation. I want you to notice without judgment every time your energy drops in the afternoon, every time a craving appears, every time your mood shifts without an obvious emotional cause. Write it down or type it in your notes app, just the time and what you felt. 2:30 p.m. Exhausted, craving something sweet. 1 line. That's it.
Here's why this matters more than it sounds. The moment you can name the wave, you have already started to interrupt it. And today, you begin one foundational habit that every study on glucose management agrees on. You stop eating naked carbohydrates. Every time you reach for bread, fruit, rice, or anything starchy, you pair it with protein, healthy fat, or fiber. Protein slows gastric emptying, fat slows glucose absorption, fiber acts as a gut buffer. A banana alone, spike. A banana with almond butter, wave softened. This single shift, starting with your next meal, begins to change your metabolic trajectory. Day 1, done. Day 2, the sequence secret. Most people assume what you eat determines your glucose response, but research tells us something far more interesting. The order in which you eat matters just as much, sometimes more. When you start a meal with vegetables and protein before carbohydrates, glucose absorption slows dramatically. Research showed that eating in the sequence of fiber, then protein, then carbohydrates can reduce post-meal glucose spikes by up to 73%. 73% from a change in order, not in what you're eating. Day 2, your single practice. Eat your greens and protein first at every meal, then grains, starches, or sweeter items. You are not giving things up, you're resequencing them. The results will appear before this day is over. Day 3, move to flatten. Here's something that sounds almost too simple to be real. A 10-minute walk after meals. Not a run, not a workout, a walk. Your skeletal muscles are the largest glucose-consuming tissue in your body. When you move your legs, those muscles act like glucose sponges, pulling sugar directly out of your bloodstream without insulin needing to do the heavy lifting. A study published in Sports Medicine showed that a 10-minute moderate walk after eating reduced post-meal blood sugar spikes by up to 58% compared to sitting. Day 3,
Add the post-meal walk, morning, afternoon, evening, even 10 minutes, even 5. The timing matters far more than the intensity. This is not exercise for aesthetics. This is blood sugar management disguised as a gentle stroll. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Day 4 and day 5 sound like more of the same. They're not. In fact, day 5 reveals something about your glucose that has absolutely nothing to do with food, and it's the piece that most health professionals miss completely. People tell me consistently it's the moment this whole protocol finally clicks. Keep going. Day 4, the hunger signal reset. By day 4, something shifts. If you followed the first 3 days, the cravings are quieter, the afternoon wall is softer, your energy feels a little more of your own. But today, I need to tell you something that stopped me cold when I first encountered it in my practice. I had a patient, I'll call her Maya, who came to see me exhausted and frustrated, convinced that her body was simply broken. She tried every diet, every supplement, every reset protocol she'd found online. Nothing worked. When we sat down together and mapped her blood sugar patterns across 1 week, we found something she had never considered. She wasn't actually hungry, not once in those 7 days of records. Every hunger signal she had been responding to for years was a glucose crash, a false alarm her nervous system had learned to send. That realization made her cry, not from sadness, from relief, because for the first time in years, she understood what was actually happening, and things she had blamed on her character, her willpower, her discipline, turned out to be biology. I've seen that same moment happen with dozens of people since. What I call glucose noise, false hunger signals generated by blood sugar drops, is one of the most underestimated forces in metabolic dysfunction. Your brain interprets the crash as starvation, but you're not hungry. You're experiencing a glucose drop, and those two things require completely different responses. Today, when a craving hits, pause for 90 seconds. Drink a glass of water with a pinch of sea salt, then wait. You're giving your brain's reasoning center time to override the panic signal from your hunger center. True hunger builds slowly over hours. Glucose noise hunger arrives as a sudden, urgent, specific craving that wasn't there 30 seconds ago. You will begin to tell the difference, and that distinction will quietly transform your relationship with food in ways that no diet plan ever could. Day 5, the Cortisol Connection. This is the day I promised you, the one that surprises everyone. You don't have to eat a single gram of sugar to spike your blood sugar. Cortisol alone, your primary stress hormone, can raise blood sugar significantly. This is an ancient survival mechanism. In the presence of perceived danger, your body floods the bloodstream with glucose to fuel a physical response. The problem is that in our modern lives, the danger signal never turns off. Work deadlines, financial anxiety, difficult conversations, 47 unread messages. Your body cannot distinguish between a predator and a performance review. It responds to both with the same biochemical alarm, a cortisol surge that raises your blood sugar without a single bite of food. This is why people who eat impeccably but live under chronic stress still cannot stabilize their metabolic health. They are glucose spiking themselves with their own nervous system every single day. And here's what makes this personal. Most of us have stopped recognizing that we're even under that kind of stress anymore. It has become the background noise of daily life. Our bodies still hear it loud and clear. Day 5, 5 minutes of slow, controlled breathing before your largest meal of the day. Inhale for 4 counts, exhale for 6 counts. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest state, before food arrives. Your insulin response becomes calmer, your digestion improves, your glucose wave flattens. 5 minutes before dinner, starting tonight. This is not wellness theater, this is metabolic medicine. Day 6, sleep as medicine. By day 6, your body is remembering how to regulate itself. And here's something that our Vitawave community members report consistently by this point in the protocol. They are sleeping better, waking up less, feeling more rested in the morning. Not because we address sleep directly, but because when your glucose waves flatten and your cortisol patterns stabilize, your sleep architecture actually improves on its own. But now let's make sleep a deliberate tool, because one variable can undermine everything else we've we've built this week. A single night of poor sleep under 6 hours reduces insulin sensitivity by up to 25% the following day. Every piece of food hits harder, every spike climbs higher, every crash comes faster. Day 6, protect sleep as the metabolic intervention it actually is. 3 practices: no screens for 30 minutes before bed, room temperature between 67 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit or 19 to 20 degrees Celsius if you can manage it, and no eating within 2 hours of sleep. Your cells regenerate their insulin receptors during deep sleep. You are quite literally repairing your glucose sensitivity every single night if you allow the process to complete.
Day 7, the Rhythm Recalibration. Day 7 is not the end. It is the beginning of a new biological baseline. Before we close this chapter together, I want you to do something. Go back to those notes you started on day 1. Look at what you wrote. 2:30 p.m., exhausted, craving something sweet. Is that still happening with the same intensity? Is that afternoon wall still as solid? Is the brain fog as thick as it was 7 days ago? For most people who follow this protocol fully, the answer is no. Not because we performed a miracle, but because we worked with the body's own intelligence instead of fighting it. Today, you cement what you built into a permanent rhythm, because health, as we believe at Vitawave, is not a destination you arrive at. It is a rhythm you practice daily. Your permanent foundation going forward is 5 inputs. Pair every carbohydrate, sequence your meals, move after eating, breathe before stress, guard your sleep. 5 inputs, 7 days to embody them, a lifetime of metabolic health to carry forward from them. You are now someone who understands their glucose waves, who can read them, adjust them, and ride them with intention. That identity, that is the real protocol. I want you to understand something about the person who pressed play on this video. The fatigue at the beginning of this week, that wasn't weakness. That was an uncalibrated biological system that had never been shown the right rhythm. The cravings, those weren't lack of willpower or discipline. Those were your nervous system running on glucose noise, responding to patterns it had been trained to expect. The brain fog, that wasn't your ceiling. That was glucose dysregulation, quietly robbing your neurons of steady fuel, hour after hour, day after day. When you reset your insulin rhythm, something remarkable begins to unfold. I've watched it happen in patients, in community members, in people who sent me messages from the other side of the world saying, "I finally feel like myself again." Energy becomes consistent, not a high followed by a crash, just a steady, reliable current that carries you through the afternoon and into the evening. You think more clearly at 3 p.m. than you did at 9 a.m. Your hunger signals become honest again. Your mood stabilizes. Your sleep deepens. And if weight loss is part of your goal, the number starts to shift without the obsessive counting and painful deprivation that never actually worked anyway, because the root cause is finally being addressed. Your body was never broken. It was waiting for someone to show it the right rhythm. And now you know it. And knowing it changes everything. I've shared this protocol with patients in my practice and with thousands of people in the Vitawave community over the past few years. What comes back is always some version of the same message. Here are a few things people have told me directly because they said it better than I could. I've been chasing my afternoon crash for 15 years. 7 days in, it was gone. I didn't change what I ate. I changed when and how I ate it. And my doctor called me 2 weeks later to ask what I'd done differently after my blood work came back. The day 5 cortisol revelation hit me hard. I realized I'd been stress spiking myself every single day at work and calling it hunger. Nothing I did with food was ever going to fix that. These are not exceptional people. They are people exactly like you, frustrated, exhausted, ready to stop guessing and start understanding. The 7-day framework isn't arbitrary. It aligns with the research on short-term insulin sensitization and the psychological science of habit formation. 7 days is long enough to create measurable biological change and short enough to feel genuinely achievable. That combination, biological momentum plus psychological confidence, is precisely what makes this protocol land where so many others don't. If today's episode gave you something real, a framework you didn't have before, a moment of clarity about your own biology, or simply the feeling that your exhaustion finally has a name and a solution, then I want to ask you to do one specific thing before you close this. Start today, not tomorrow, not Monday. Pair your next carbohydrate, walk after your next meal, breathe before your next stressful moment. The protocol is not something you schedule. It is something you begin with the very next bite. And I want to know where you are. Drop a comment below and tell me which day are you starting on and which symptom are you most ready to be done with. Your answers matter to me, and they help build the kind of community people come to when they're ready to ride their rhythm instead of fight their body. If you're ready to go deeper, our next episode addresses the second most powerful driver of metabolic dysfunction that almost nobody talks about in health content: the cortisol-insulin feedback loop and the single morning practice that breaks it permanently. Subscribe to Vitawave so you don't miss it when it drops. And if someone in your life is exhausted, foggy, frustrated, and convinced it's just their age or their stress, send them this video. It might be the conversation that changes things for them. Because health is not a destination. It is a rhythm you learn to ride. And today, you took a real, biological, measurable step toward riding it. I'm Dr. Elias Site. This is Vitawave. See you in the next wave.